All right. Well, welcome to Comedians and Elevators podcast. I've got my guest here, Brendan. Brendan, please introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you.
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm Brendan Bois. I've been doing stand-up comedy in Minneapolis for quite a while now. I also did it a lot over in Spokane, Washington. That was like my favorite place. They really like my stuff out there. Out in Minneapolis, it's a little iffy, Things can get a little dicey. But I also am the business owner of Prank Pros Beasts, a pranking business where you basically you let me into like one of your family members' spaces, and for just a you need to pay for the travel expenses and the liquid food to like get me into their space, and so I can hide in their closet or under their floorboards, and I so basically, I eat the liquid food, and you just have to let me into your like mom or dad's space and stuff, and then it's just a small like $3,500 fee for the prank on top of that. But I do a lot of pranks like that. So
Wow,
yeah,
that is, I mean, so we've got a couple of things to talk about there.
yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
gosh, that's so, might as well just throw in the main topic to kind of segue into that because, that's some interesting, I mean, very interesting kind of practical. So the main, topic of the whole podcast is the comic versus comedian, the comedian being a funny person, the comic being anybody that tells funny jokes, right? And it's on a spectrum. Most really you can't be one without the other. There's a blend. So from your perspective, so one thing you said, you're talking about Minneapolis and it's a little sketchy there, right? Can you elaborate on that? What's going on with the scene up there?
Basically, just a lot of my humor is a little bit, I don't know. I guess you could say dark, and so when I get into the wrong bars or go a little bit too far over the line, they don't really let me continue in some scenarios.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
this is
I don't think
YouTube.
it's that bad. I do it in other plaplaces. They love it. Even comedians will kick me off stage. They'll be like, "No, man, you can't be doing that here." I'm like, "What? You're supposed to be on my side." Usually it's
Huh.
the audience that is like, "Oh, that's too bad." No, the comedians kick you off stage in Minneapolis. So
Well, that
I
is
don't know.
interesting. So, I mean, we want to be YouTube friendly, but I think we all want to know, like, what could you have possibly said? What is an example?
Oh, a good example is, I go up on stage and I'll say something like, I like to play this little game with the audience called Sounds Offensive Isn't Offensive. And I
Okay.
usually start with by saying, all right, I'll go first. A dead woman is an object.
Okay.
So, ladies, if you don't want to be objectified, just don't die because I will
Uh,
only have sex with it.
Oh, okay.
you
I can see where
know,
this is going. All
that.
right.
And then there's a couple others. Like I have one where I do an impression of a Muslim that believes in reincarnation, defending his religion in court, and he goes,
Okay.
"Your Honor, the only reason I had sexuals, I did sexuals, Adam, with those 72 underage virgins is because I blew myself up in the past life. I deserved it.
Ah, I see. So he's getting what he
72 is a
expected.
lot.
Got it.
72 that has to be God. It's got to be God. Either that or I'm R. Kelly's long lost twin, right? Because I can barely piss with morning wood in the morning, let alone in the eyes of a 14-year-old girl. or
Have you been to Los Angeles?
I've never been to Los Angeles. No, I've never been.
So there's obviously a comedy scene here. I do stand up here, and it's so far, it sounds pretty much in line with some of the limits of what we hear constantly. So, but I could see how some
Oh yeah,
people
no,
could.
yeah, I get, yeah. There's a few others too. Like, my kid isn't gonna know about the sky because of his baseball cap and broken neck.
Oh dear, that's good. That's a good one. I mean, I like it. It's interesting. So, um, well, let's see. Let me roll that in because you did do an impersonation. So let's see if this makes sense. So the first question is the role of a persona in comedy, right? So, how much of the comedian's voice is a character versus their real self? So you did an impersonation. Obviously, it's kind of someone else's voice, but it's through you. So you have insight on where this may fall.
So I mean, I'm pretty bad at being myself on stage. That's why I like doing kind of a character or seeming like a different person. When I get on stage, I can get pretty crazy, and a lot of my stuff is it very comes off like I'm a crazy person. So it helps a lot. I do this character called the Time Genie actually. And
Okay.
so I show up to open mics with blue paint on my face, looking like a homeless person that just like drug himself out from under a bridge. And I
So the
get up
blue
on
paint
stage and
is not like a clean paint
no,
job.
no, it looks like I did it really terribly, and I like get
Okay.
up on stage and I act super drunk, and I'm the time genie. I can grant you wishes in either the past or the present, never the or past or the future, never the present. That's too hard, and so that like helps a lot, for me. But yeah, I need to just being myself. I'm like a fairly funny guy, but when I get up on stage, I definitely change my persona a little bit. That's
Now
for
that is super interesting actually. So you're going to the I think the extremes of the comic, right? You're telling like anyone could do it if they dared, but it's not necessarily you because you're clearly being somebody else, right? So
sure.
one of the things that I'm working on with my small company podcast here is using the MBTI, the personality matrix, to actually discover your cognitive origin and your comedic character. And so maybe we could check it out, but I'm pretty sure I got that on point. It's an intellectual kind of way of understanding it, but I think it might be helpful. We can talk about that. It's basically take a personality test, and then I have it on my website where every personality of the 16 types has a blind spot which is specific to them. So I
Okay.
don't know. It helped me. But let's move on to the next question. Punching up versus punching down. So I already have a feeling I know where this is going to lie. So for the comic versus the comedian, where do you stand on this?
I mean, I think, in my opinion, punching up or punching down, like I try to stay away from that even mindset. I try to think of it as like, you know, everything in life exists and can be described in a way based on your own personal reality. And so if it is funny, then it is true. So if I'm like, this, well, isn't this like this? If people don't laugh, then it's not true. And whether or not it's punching up or down, you're wrong. And so that's kind of where I stay. If it is correct and people do find it funny, yeah, if you're relating it to something that isn't good, then I guess that could be punching down on it. But
Right.
also at the same time, oftentimes the subject of the joke is responsible for however it feels about the awareness that has been brought to its own reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the zeitgeist. So yeah, I mean, you pretty much got that on point. Um, it's interesting. You basically bypassed the question, but you answered it in a more meaningful way, which is really good. Basically, it's irrelevant, right? Until it became you're punching down, nobody even thought about that. It just
Exactly.
wasn't a thing. All of a sudden, it was tossed in. They're like, okay, and then punching up, well, whatever. With that, right? That's pretty much, I think, acceptable. Like, eat the rich. You're like, yeah, that's not even funny, but you can go
Yeah.
for that, right? Um, okay, number three, cultural translation of comedy. So this will be interesting. So you worked in different places. So how does one joke work in one area but bomb in another? Right. So do you have insight on why that's really happening? Do you think it's a place or is it more you?
So Washington is known for being very liberal or woke or whatever, but
The
I think
state, Washington State.
more just Seattle though. I
Okay.
think that's why it worked. Is Spokane is more on the other side by Idaho, and
Okay.
it's definitely pretty liberal in that city. It's like the biggest city in Eastern Washington, but they seem a little bit more lax. You can say whatever you want to say. They actually listen. They don't just go, "Oh, you can't make a joke about that." Here
Right.
in Minneapolis, they literally, if the subject is not about something you can joke about,
Uh huh.
they they take you off stage, even if it's like the most ridiculous thing ever. You don't mean it whatsoever, and if you actually follow along, it makes sense. They still are like, no, you can't make a joke about hitting a woman. You
Hmm.
can't do it. You can't say anything about that, even if it's totally ridiculous. Anything like, I don't know. It's almost
Well,
like you
these are
have
these
to,
comedy clubs or are they
yeah,
like?
they're comedy clubs. There was this one before COVID that was like the biggest one. It was at Eric the Red's bar. That's where like all like the biggest comedians would always converge on Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
And the host there kicked me off stage a couple times. He's like, no. And he actually opened for one professional comic. I can't remember his name. He's from Finland, but that's his whole shtick is making fun of Americans because he's from Finland, and it's actually really funny. It like makes fun of our language and stuff. But he opened for him, and I was like, oh my, that motherfucker kicked me off stage multiple
Yeah.
times, and now he's here. God damn it! Fuck that
Ah,
guy. Whatever. I mean, good for him. It just sucks when the comedians go against you, even though you know, like, I'm making jokes, dude. You
you
should
know,
know.
you're doing the right thing because it's, the hard part is not going far enough, right? Most people on comics, comedians, they're not funny. They're not going far enough, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think you're in the perfect spot where some people think you're going too far and they got to pull back. But I mean, that's the place to be as far as I can tell, because you're hitting the mark if that's the result, right? So
It's true. That is
you're
true.
100% going in the right direction. That's for sure. So I think I might know the answer to this question, but number four is crowd work versus crafted work, right? So as far as I can tell, comics riff and comedians perform, right? So the question is where's the sweet spot? So do you do crowd work?
If I do, it's very limited. Like it always has a plan. You know, I always have
Okay,
a track that I'm trying to stay on, and
right,
if I mean, usually like my adrenaline's going enough that if I do crowd work and it kind of veers off, I'm able to, yeah, funny thing. Oh, another
right.
funny thing. Okay, okay, get it back on track. But for the most part, yeah, I kind of keep it on track. I've never really just let go of all material, went up there and just tried to be funny talking to people on stage. It usually takes, like, if I'm going to be funny talking to someone in person, you kind of have to build the setup up. You got to have a few back and forths before I come up with something funny. It's pretty hard. I'm not
Yeah.
that amazing at like just pulling one-liners out of my ass at all
That's
moments.
exactly right. They're pretty much one-liners that fit in that context, right? So
You
you just have to have them on point. But some people, for me, it's pretty hard. I basically go for they're gonna hit a cue. It's either a yes or a no answer to a question, and that's my crowd work. I mean, that's the only way to keep a tight five, at least where I'm performing. It's more about it's a really tight set that you need to keep on, so you don't have time to let them not. No one else can hear what they're saying, right? So that's one major thing. Okay, number five, censorship versus offense. So the question is in the context of the comic versus the comedian, do you think that the comic actually avoids offense while a comedian courts it to prove a point?
know.
It's a contrived position to argue. Is what I'm saying is the comic is the one that anyone can tell jokes, right? And then the
Yeah, yeah.
comedian's a funny person. So what
I mean,
what's really going on there?
I feel like you kind of have to toe the line just so that people understand that you aren't not self-aware, because like that's where people can really start to be like, oh, is this guy really just saying this? It's like when I don't know exactly what your question was, but that's kind of how I think of it, is if like I'm about to say something that is definitely like iffy, I'll make very sure I'm like, hey, I know that this is how this is, but like, hear me out. When people are towing the line between offensive and censoring, that's kind of how I go about it, is just censoring myself with a little bit of self awareness to be like, hey, I'm self aware, guys. I know I shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to anyways. It's for the joke. You know what I mean? But other than that, I don't think anyone should really censor anything. I think everything's on the table.
So you're actually not courting the offense to prove a point if you're censoring yourself. Would you agree?
I'm sorry, can you reiterate?
Well, you're saying you're censoring yourself, right? So you know that you're going to be offensive, but maybe you're pulling back a little,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Are you saying that dynamic is not actually in character?
I no, I mean, I guess that isn't really censoring. It's more just gaining more traction and you know, managing the risks of the lack of censorship, I
Yeah,
guess.
you don't want to get kicked off stage. I mean, that for saying something that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I've seen it happen, but mainly because someone just is like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
not what they're saying; it's really what they're doing. But
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely a time and place for getting kicked off stage, but when I'm obviously just making a joke about a subject,
right.
it's just kind of like, what? I'm not doing anything crazy right now. I'm not gonna, like, I didn't pull a gun out, like what?
Right, right, right. That's interesting. So, see if I can throw in another question off the cuff here is, um, if you're in character, are those the ones that people are offended by?
I've had it happen both times.
Yeah,
So if I'm doing my Time Genie character, I've been kicked off stage. I was at a gay bar
For
and
Time Genie, you got kicked off?
I did. Yep, I did get.
Why? What was offensive about that?
I can go. I can do the bit. I'm not going to tell you the line because it sounds really bad. The line that got me kicked off was "stupid fucking lesbians." That's what I said.
I got it. So yeah, I see. So
It needs
basically,
context.
yeah, it's
But
these
I was in a
barbers.
gay bar, so it was a kind of
Oh,
a soft. And I didn't know. I didn't know.
oh.
I like looked around. I was like, it's a soccer bar. I guess it's really like
It looks
soccer.
like a sports bar.
Yeah, yeah.
That's hilarious.
All soccer. I'm like, all right, soccer. All right, cool. And then went up there, did that, and yeah, they were like, I am lesbian. I'm like, I know you didn't listen. I wasn't saying all lesbians are stupid. That's the whole joke.
So the funny thing is if you knew that, would you have done it, right? So you probably would have been a little different about it, crafted, added more to
I
it,
don't know.
or
I went there with the plan
of
to
course. I
do
trust me.
it.
I know you go there with a plan, and you're not necessarily listening to everything because you're like, I have a plan, I have a plan, and then
Yeah, I'm like,
you
this is
know,
what I'm gonna say,
yeah,
and
yeah,
hopefully
hundred
I
percent,
don't get a bad reaction. It's kind of what I would
yeah.
probably would have done.
No, I get that. Trust me. You get sides. You're like, what? Why is that happening? I don't know what's going on there. And
Yo,
you're like,
yo.
oh, we're gonna move on from there. All right. Well, let's see. Number six, timing and delivery, science or art. So, do you believe the comics rely more on structure and comedians more on rhythm and emotion?
Um, I feel like I kind of just feel it out. You know, I write it down. I know what concept is funny, and I kind of know what I want to say. And then, yeah, just the more that I do it, the more I can kind of just feel out what is funny. I don't know if like I could break it down necessarily to a science. I'm more just intuitively
Well,
times.
when you're writing it, what are you doing? Like, there's a pattern to the writing.
Um, no, I mean, I'm a kind of an obsessive person, you know,
Okay.
so I've thought a lot about doing something like that, somehow like working in like how to time things and how I can tell myself to time things or like giving it a specific tone or something. What I've come up with basically is if I'm like, oh, this one's going to be really hard to remember in like a couple
Yeah.
months if I want to do it again, I just record myself doing it.
Right.
Like, because I have it in my head. Because sometimes I'll look back at something from like 6 months ago and I'm like, oh, I mean, kind of see how that's funny, but I can't remember exactly how I was saying it and exactly how
Yeah.
I wanted to do it. But then also that kind of shows me like, oh, obviously it's not that funny if I can't just like go right straight back to it, I guess.
No, for sure, it's really tough. So that's kind of the point of the question is, especially when you look at the long term, like if you write it and you know it's funny on paper, now you have the problem of, well, you have to bring it to life and
Yeah.
make it funny in the real domain. But if it's somehow you came up with something in the real domain, and even if you write it down, it doesn't capture the funny. The words are there. You may even have description, but it's not, you're not keeping the memory of the funny. And so you're like, well, how do I combine the two, right? How do you keep those over time? And I personally, I haven't found the sweet spot. So the question, to me also is very elusive, right? So maybe it does have something to do, emotion, I'm sure, right? How does it make you feel? And for me, I'm not that's not my strong suit. So and neither is rhythm. So I stick to the writing. So
Yeah.
maybe that's the where we get stuck. Okay, here's a good one. Laughter versus applause. Are comics chasing laughs and comedians chasing applause breaks that validate their message?
I mean, I think for the most part, I mean, chasing laughs, you know, I mean, applause would be cool. It's like, yes, I nailed it. Heck yeah. You know,
Right?
yeah, when you get the applause and people are like, yes, dude. Oh, that's pretty sick.
I mean,
But
technically, so you're agreeing that applause is like a higher order. It's
yeah,
above
I guess
laughter.
applause would be a little bit higher in some cases. I mean, if they're applauding, there needs to be laughter too. You
Yeah.
know, applause followed by laughter. If it's just like, yes, 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 yes. I mean,
Now
I don't
some
want
people
that.
are now some people are like that. Like when I'm at a show and I'm focused on my thing, and there's a comedian and they're doing something and it's funny, even
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
especially
Yep.
if I've heard it before, I'm going to clap because
Exactly. Yep.
I'm not laughing at it. I'm not going
Exactly.
to go on stage and laugh at my own joke. So I'm not going to just fake laugh and then that comes out on stage as a fake laugh to my own joke, that would be ridiculous. So there is a time when clapping, makes sense, but for the audience,
Yep.
it's a tough signal that you get back, right?
Yep. I mean, I definitely like there's a couple comedians out here in Minneapolis when they go up there, it's very their style isn't oftentimes like ah ha 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 ha. So for them, it's like probably better. Like I
Right.
watched this one guy where someone was like, oh, dude, oh, that's good,
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
good, and I can see him like going for that more often and just like
Those
oh.
slower, exactly. The slower jokes for sure, you get the applause. The ones that you remember later, you're like, oh my God, that was,
Yeah.
that one, that's the one I should applaud now because I know like later that one's going to hit later. All right. So number 8, comedy as commentary. So when does a comedian cross into being a philosopher or a preacher?
Hot take. Might regret this later. I think Dave Chappelle is the most overrated comic out there because of this exact point I'm about to make. I don't think he makes enough jokes anymore. I don't think he's that funny anymore. He's turned into a TED talker to me. He's
Okay.
becoming a preacher. He's not making enough just jokes, and a lot of his subject, a lot of his content is just like preachy, and it's about some bigger message, which is always fine. But there needs to be like good, silly, funny shit in between. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
does do that. He does definitely have, every special he has those moments that are silly, that are funny. But it's so far and few between nowadays, where like each special is like a 30-minute TED talk with like three jokes in the middle. And
It is, but they're good jokes, so it's hard to
yeah,
gauge, right?
yeah. I
Because
mean,
he
yeah,
still hits the points that he needs to hit. If you remember 3 of his jokes on a 1 hour special, to me that's winning. But he
yeah,
only had 3 jokes in the first place, so he's really on the edge of, right? He's like perfected it, but you also have that criticism of it's almost too perfect at this point. Where this is the question: Are you a philosopher and a preacher now, right?
yep, exactly. That's kind of how I'm feeling about him. Where I'm like, ah, I wish you would just go back to talking about crackheads. I
Yeah.
wish you would just go back to just common stuff. But also, it is good to like. I really do like a lot of the points he makes, and he's definitely a good guy. And I still watch all of his stuff. He's good, but
Yeah.
like
Well,
I
there's a follow up part of that question. So is it good because in me is it good to have fewer jokes and more of this kind of preaching in his context because it's not diluting the humor, right? You have a chance to like absorb it more,
yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, I'd say where he's at is a good place
right?
for sure.
It's just a difficult place to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. All right, comedy and vulnerability. So here's a good one. Do you think the comics hide behind their jokes and the comedians expose themselves?
I mean, I've noticed in my life that if something upsets me, I can just almost avoid it by making fun of it, which is also exposing. So it's like almost it's weird. It's like I kind of hide behind the joke, but also I make myself feel better by exposing it. So it's like I think it's a good thing too. I think comedians hiding behind their jokes is actually just a good form of therapy for them, and actually is good for the audience too. It makes them comfortable with issues, and I don't know. Is that what
So
you're trying to
yeah,
say?
so yeah, now I'm even this question I'm looking at it. So the idea is that the comedian is a funny person on the inside. So really, they can't hide behind the joke, right? Because they're the funny, right? Then they tell jokes. So the comic is the one that's just telling jokes. So they're the one that could hide behind the joke. So these are both. It's just a semantic kind of argument. Um, but I guess it's a two-part question. So really, the question is which one is braver than the other? Is it braver to expose oneself, um, or is it really? I mean, it's kind of a loaded question. Or is it braver to hide behind your joke? I mean, you need to have a joke, but you don't want to hide behind it. But a comedian also may not have a joke. They're just a funny person, and they're exposing they're funny. Like there's some that just walk around, and then they're funny people. They don't really tell a joke, right? But
Yep.
they're totally exposing themselves,
Yep.
right? But they actually may not have a joke. So I guess this is a kind of a loaded question, comic versus comedian. So
um,
you want to tell me a little bit about what you were this prank? company. This sounds kind of epic.
Yeah, so basically, I just started it. I've been trying to come up with some like good pranks to like kind of market the business. I'm going to be running ads on Facebook and whatnot. But basically, I've realized that pranking is a hot commodity to an extent, and a lot of rich people will pay a lot of money to get a good prank on their mom and dad. And I tell them, you just got to let me into their space. But one caveat: pranking an enemy
Hmm.
is not a prank. You gotta
Okay.
prank a family member because I don't want another freaking lawsuit about a prank. I don't want to get shot in the face.
You said another?
I'm not allowed to speak about it at the
Okay.
moment, but
Pranking an enemy. Now that's a joke. Do you have a joke about pranking an enemy?
no, I do not.
You almost want to don't want to go there. Huh?
So I got a few pranks I want to do, like cat calling girls in their houses, or
While
like
you're inside the house.
yeah, yep, and I farting elevator pranks, and
Yeah, that's
like I don't know, I want to get it to a point where like I can do something really crazy to someone, where like I lock them in a tractor, and I don't know, we can put smelly stuff into the tractor, and get your mom to like go through a door, and now she thinks she's not real anymore. Make
really.
someone think that they're in a dream. I want to go like full
How do
Darren.
you how do you conceive of doing that?
Well, I mean, it depends on how in depth I can get into their space. Because if I can really get into someone's space, I can make some pretty good contraptions and really, 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 make things change
So you
sizes,
can okay. Oh, you're saying change the space so it looks different
change
with,
the
in
space fully,
perspective.
where the lights turn off, they turn back on, everything's different.
Ah, I see.
Maybe you have
Her,
their grandma like in the corner painted neon, like naked or something, and it's like
so,
absolutely impossible happen. They think they're in a
huh,
dream. Maybe make them fly. Maybe make them think they're flying. Maybe
huh. How can you make them think they're flying?
See, I haven't gotten that far yet. I need to make some money. I got to build the business up. I got to hire some scientific prankster people. Oh, my girlfriend is actually she's gonna help me. She's my assistant prankster. Hey, say hi.
Ah, hello. Are you there?
What? Say hello. Oh,
You've got the background of me. Doesn't
oh
like
yeah.
it.
Maybe if I could remove oh, whatever. She's bored.
Ah, no problem, no problem. So I mean that sounds really cool with the pranking business. That's like I mean, I'm working on a project called Robot Tarot where really pranking is a good I think a really good kind of cinematic potential, right? Because you're
Yeah, yeah.
really because and that's kind of what you're trying to do also is capture that moment. I'm assuming like you're not just is it just the experience or is there also kind of capturing recording it as part of it?
Oh, recording it 100%. I mean,
Okay.
I will just do it.
Right.
I
But the
will.
record, I mean,
I'll
the
totally just prank.
right.
It makes it so much easier because otherwise you're
Yeah.
gonna have to pay me for a lot of food to sit under a floorboard or in a closet for a while.
Wow.
Because I can't like have food in there. I need like the drinkable food, and so
Right,
I'll
right,
sit
right.
there and it's even harder. I mean, if you don't want me to see them naked, it's an extra $30 for a blindfold, and so then once the once I can kind of figure out when they're not going to be there, I can go out and start putting in the cameras and getting things all set up so I can really really just completely alter their reality and also hide all the guns and the weapons.
Ah, yeah. I mean, you're definitely going there. That's it seems like more of a teamwork job, right? You got to have more than one person involved in making this happen.
I mean,
Oh,
there's the client. This is just me. I mean, obviously, my girlfriend is when she's not all bored and I don't know. Sometimes I'm not even sure if she's breathing.
oh,
Sometimes. But anyways,
that would
uh,
be a good prank is on top of it,
yeah, good for yeah, girlfriend not breathing anymore, Frank.
right? So the last question I got is about legacy. So who gets remembered, right? So will the comics Type Five survive time, or will the comedian's cultural point of view be more timeless?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've been rewatching a lot of Louis C.K.
Mhm.
recently, and that's
So
like,
would you put him in the comic versus comedian category?
well, I forget which the
So the
he's
comedian is a funny person, and a comic is anybody that tells funny jokes. But of course, you got to have both to be on stage.
I don't know. I think I've like watched enough of him where he's like, I'm not very funny in general. Or no, I think actually, I think he is actually really fun. I've seen a lot of people talk about how he's really funny in person. Actually, I
For
think
real? Oh, in person, you think he's different in person than on stage?
I don't know. I've never met him. I've
Yeah.
never met Louis C.K. So I really don't know. But in regards to his legacy, I mean, he's my favorite. He's my
Okay.
favorite, funniest one to this day. I mean, I watched a couple of his ones that he just has on his website now that you have to like pay for, and I mean, there's still some really funny, really just oh my god, funny moments in those. It's got a little bit. He's a little bit less funny, maybe, but he's still like freaking 2017 is like my favorite.
Yeah.
2017 is
There's a time
so
there's always a time frame, right, where it's culturally relevant. So
oh
for
yeah,
him, it's
and then he just got me too. Got me too straight into the ground, and so it's like, what is his legacy? Will his comedy outlive that? I don't even know.
right.
I don't even hear about him. I see like Facebook clips of him sometimes, and
Right.
everyone's like, "This is disgusting." I don't know. I don't.
Maybe that's the proof right there is the fact that you're looking back at 2017 and he's the one that you remember. And that's pretty much the evidence right there. How long will that be? How long will you be looking back at 2017 on Facebook, right? And that would kind of prove the point.
You
Well, we'll see what happens. Well, Brendan, thank you for being my guest. Do you have any parting words you want to leave with everybody?
just remember, nothing's off the table. Say what you want to say. Be who you want to be. If you want to do pranks
Yep.
for a living, do them. If you want to prank people, um, don't prank your enemies. It gets really bad. Don't ever do that. Only prank loved ones and do it for as much money as you can.
Nice. Nice. Is there any way everyone can follow you, YouTube or somewhere else, Facebook?
Yeah, so I'm on Prank Pros Beasts on YouTube. I just started out. Maybe you'll find me eventually. Um, I'm Brendan Bois on Facebook, BrendanBois. I have some comedy Sploon, Shploon. I named it
Okay.
Sploon because I like spelling it every time I tell people about it.
That's
Um,
good. That's good.
uh, yeah, that's about it. I make funny pranks.
Awesome. Well, Brendan, thank you for being my guest on Comedians and Elevators podcast. And I'd like everyone to please like and subscribe so we can have more viewers and more people can get in touch with Brendan and hopefully hire him to do some pranks, not on your enemies.
Yep.
So thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.